my name is Lori Rabati and welcome to today's tutorial. I'm going to show you how to create this stunning lighthouse scene on glossy paper. The first thing you're going to start with is a piece of glossy cardstock that's 4 and 5 1/4 inches. For this card I'm also going to use a few more colors than I normally use. I'm going to use basic black, real red, smoky slate, Pacific Point, perfect plum, melon mambo, daffodil delight, and so saffron. Then I'm going to also use the High Tide stamp set from Stampin' Up. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you want to create masks for all the images that you're going to do, and the masks you put over top of the images so that when you're sponging your colors on, you're not getting it on top of the images. So I just stamp them on a plain piece of photocopy paper. It's nice and light, and then I'm going to make sure that I put a post-it note behind it with the sticky side out, so that when I'm ready it sticks to the images. You just want to use photocopy paper too, I might add, because then it doesn't leave you with a thick white border on the sides of your images. So you've got your lighthouse, rocks, and your sun already stamped and cut out, and now we're going to start by putting the lighthouse on. So you're just going to ink up your 1/2 of the lighthouse in black ink and then stamp it onto the center of your paper. Next, we're going to ink up the other half of the lighthouse with real red ink, and then we're going to position it over top of the first image. That's what I like about these the clear stamps, is it's easy to see through. So you're just going to put it down, press down to make sure, and then now you can see how you've got the two colors on your lighthouse. So what you're going to do now is you're going to take your lighthouse mask and you're going to stick it over top, and then you're going to position your sun as well. And then just use a scrap piece of paper and line up where you want the horizon to be. I'm using grid paper because that way I got my cardstock nice and straight. My grid paper goes across the lines, so my horizon is going to be nice and straight. So now I'm going to use a Stampin' Up sponge, and I cut them into wedges, and then I have 1 wedge per color. Now I'm going to start inking it up, my sponge, and I'm going to ink over the area. But I don't have a whole lot of patience, so what I tend to do on a large area like that is ink pad directly to my cardstock. Then you can use your sponge and just sponge and just lightly wipe over it so that it's blending the color that you've put down, so you don't have any definite lines. Then I'm going to use So Saffron, and again, I don't have the patience. I'm going to dab a little bit, and then I'm going to get tired of that. So I'm just going to, once again, I'm going to show you, just ink pad directly to paper. See how I have definite lines? Just take your sponge and wipe it down. Dab, wipe, just to get rid of all those definite lines. And I can keep building up color until I'm happy with it, as much as I want. If I don't like it, I wipe a little bit it off. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use another sponge and use Melon Mambo, and I'm just going to add some color into my sunset. Just add little bits here and there wherever I think some nice color would look. Remove my paper. I want to make mountains now. I want to create just a little bit of mountains in the background, so I'm just using that same piece of paper that I used for masking, and I'm going to cut out some hills and valleys on my scrap piece of paper. And then when I think it looks like what might pass as mountains, I'm going to line it up so that the bottom of the valley is lined up to the bottom of my horizon, and I'm just going to hold it in place with my fingers. And then I'm going to use Perfect Plum and another sponge, and I'm going to start inking up along those mountain ranges. So you just keep sponging. By sponging up, you're just giving the outline of the mountains, and you can sponge it up until you think that you've got enough built up so that you have the outline. If you're not sure, you can do a little peek and just make sure you're not moving your paper right off, or you'll just have to line it up again. And then it's not quite dark enough, so I'm going to go around the edges now. Or the sky is not dark enough, so just add some different hues. I'm going all around the outside and building up some more color into my sky. You can just keep building up, adding as much color as you want here, there. You can just use your sponges, remember, to keep blending. I just keep going until I like what I see, and if I don't like what I see, I just sponge another color over top and keep wiping. Now see, when you move the paper, you've got your mountains there in the background. So the next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to sponge the rocks around your lighthouse. So you're going to use smoky slate and then the rock image and line that up around the bottom of your lighthouse. Sorry about that glare, the light is shining right on top of it. So you just press it down until you've got a nice straight image, and now you've got your rocks. So now I'm going to add the water. So I want to line up, I'm going to put the mask over top, I'm going to line up my paper at the bottom of the horizon, and then I'm going to use the Pacific Point ink and the ripple stamp and just keep building up the ripples in the water. Just add it as many times as you need. You can stamp right directly onto the ink each time if you want, or if you don't want to, you can just stamp off. It doesn't really matter because you're going to do a little bit of smearing when you're done. So I'm just going to use a really dry cloth. In this case, I'm just using a Kleenex, and I'm just barely touching the ripples because it's still a little bit wet, and then as you touch the ripples, it's smearing basically the ink. So now it's just taking on the look of water, but yet you're still left with the ripple look. And then you're going to tear away your rock mask, and you can see that it's coming together. We'll pull away the sun. Now see, it's too stark white for me. I don't really like that. So I'm going to just take a little bit of Daffodil Delight ink, and I'm going to just ink over top so that it's just taking away some of the whiteness. And then it just blends a little bit nicer, because after all, the sun kind of is yellow, supposed to be. Now I want to add the light rays. I'm just going to use smoky slate to add the light rays in. Ink up the stamp each time. Smoky slate's very light color, so it's just going to give it a hint of light. And then from here we can peel off the mask for the lighthouse. Isn't that beautiful? It's just coming along so nice. So I'm going to add some birds now. Make sure I ink up the birds really well. I'm going to make sure I don't turn it upside down. And then I like to have one of the birds in the sun, so I just position it over top, press down, and there we have the birds. So pretty. Then you're just going to adhere your card, your finished card, to the front of your card, and I'm just using Pacific Point cardstock and going to stick it onto the front. And then I'm going to add, you can add whatever greeting you, oh sorry, before we add the greeting we'll add the rhinestone. I just like to add a little rhinestone there so it looks like the light of the lighthouse is shining out the rays. Then we're going to add a greeting, and you can use whatever greeting you want. I'm using Happy Birthday from the Cake Soiree cake set. And this way, this is a really nice card for a gentleman friend or boyfriend, husband,